And welcome back to the Sweat It Out podcast. Today we have my good friend, former tennis pro, out there helping the youth, Yury Bettoni. How are you, man?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
How's everything been? It's been a while.
I know it's been a while, and first of all, I wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity. I think it's a great thing, and I think looking forward for this interview.
Yeah, we always have a good time on here, man. It's pretty casual, so we'll be joking around.
Yeah, appreciate your time for coming on.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? I mean, obviously, I've known you for quite a few years now from, my days training at Equinox. You were a member there. But I'm sure everyone would be interested to hear a little bit about your backstory and kind of how you got your start in tennis.
Well, the story starts many, many years ago. First of all, I was born in Africa, believe it or not. And the first probably 15 years of my life, I lived between Africa and Saudi Arabia. I never really played tennis except one time that I've seen a tennis court in Africa, and I thought it was a cool sport, but never really did anything with it. When we left Africa with my family, we went to Italy for a couple of years. And my mother enrolled me in the school that every afternoon I would have to play a different sport. So I remember Monday was the soccer day, and Thursday was the tennis day. All the other days were different sports, which I didn't really care much. But I enjoyed more than the tennis. At some point, my mom didn't want me to play tennis because, didn't want me to play soccer because I was getting hurt, or she wanted me to play tennis more, and I hated it. They forced me to play the first little tournament. I got to the finals, which was kind of cool and unique and new. A few people came to watch, so I didn't think I really was playing very well at the time, but somehow I got to the finals, and that was enough to get me going. Same week I got to the finals in the mini tennis for the Italian championships, so I thought it was kind of cool, and maybe I had something to... They could have been good for the future. So she enrolled me to a tennis club, to a proper one, and then from there it was history, because I started playing 3 hours a week. I was playing 5-6 times a week for about a year and a half, until I came to the States in '92 in vacation.
It's the year I was born.
Okay. And Nick Bollettieri saw me playing, and he gave me an opportunity to play at IMG. That at that time was the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy, the NBTA, and that's how we moved to the States. The entire family. My mom wanted to go back to Africa. My father didn't, and he thought it was a good thing to move to the States. So between the opportunity I had with tennis and being in the States with a family, that's how we made the move. And then from there, I was probably 15 and a half, almost 16. And I was playing from 5-6 times a week, maybe 7-8 hours. I was playing 8 hours a day for 5-6 days a week. So it's a big difference. And that's it. So that's my history, how I got involved with the tennis.
Yeah, I mean, they take it pretty seriously over there at IMG. It's no joke. I mean, if you're competing over there, you're real serious. Clearly,
I just came back a couple of days ago from the academy, and first of all, it grew tremendously. From when I was there were just 56 courts, I think. Now there's not only tennis but soccer, baseball, amazing, lacrosse, NBA. Pretty much everything. So it's the hub of the sports. It's very, very high tech. There's the Gatorade Sports Institute, which a few years ago I was part of it. I was lucky enough to be chosen to go through the testing, the lab and the on-court testing, which was a very interesting thing to find out how the body works and what you need under certain conditions, weather and stuff like that. So
Yury, I want to ask you just I know Josh has told me a little bit about you, and I'm getting to learn more about you now, which is amazing. But knowing the success that you've been able to build on yourself and being at that pro level, I'm just curious because I see this happen quite often, where you mentioned you were playing soccer and your mom kind of like forced you out of that and wanted you playing tennis, even though that wasn't what you wanted to do at the beginning? You hear many times stories where that happens with kids. They move on and then when they get to like the college level or they're getting pushed out, sometimes they remove themselves completely because they're only doing that to favor their, to make their parents happy. And it wasn't, they're great, but they were really trying to just make their parents happy. And then either they fall out or they continue on and they fall out somewhere. And it's just, they said like, well, I was never doing this really for me. What was that difference for you? Because it obviously shows that you're passionate. You continued with it. You're a true professional. You've had so much success. Like, where did you realize where your mom doing that was actually the calling for you? And you realize that it wasn't something you were doing for the happiness of your parents, unless that was part of it.
Well, that's a very good question. You hit the nail on the head. That's one of the biggest problems nowadays that I'm seeing. Parents that really want, probably they never really achieve what they really wanted to achieve in sports, and they try to live through the kids, and they pressure them and they oppress them eventually, and until they, by 18, 19, still in their youth, they completely fall out and they take a completely different route. And sometimes leaves them mental scars if they're not very strong mentally or so on, and that can create a problem in the future of the well-being of the kid. My case, I would have to say that I was extremely lucky, because the only reason my mom wanted me to not play soccer was because I was getting hurt a lot. And since I was very little, I would always try to exceed my potential in moving around really fast, and that led to many injuries. So my mom was always been maybe too overprotective. I open and close a parenthesis before the tennis part. My family always raced cars. So since I was very little, they put me on a go-kart. So my career was to race cars.
Wow.
And when I was supposed to do the European Championships, my mom told my father, and I was probably 13, 14, she said, if you take him to Spain, I'll divorce you. He's not going to ever race cars because it's too dangerous. So that was my ending of the racing career.
That was straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. That was so. Later on, he showed on the soccer side, so I was not surprised. But the only reason was that she was overprotective. When I was playing, when I got better and I started traveling the world at tournaments and stuff, she never really pressured me if I would win, if I would lose. She would always keep the same constant behavior. She would appreciate, but she would not put me down if I would lose. But she would try to find out what were the reasons and stuff. So that really, really helped me. On my father's side, the same thing. He never really pushed me. The only thing I remember that he was getting really hard on me, it was when it was a time in my juniors that I was breaking lots of rackets. I was a little bit rebellious versus myself, and getting frustrated. Probably the pressure, because the academy at that time was very, very competitive. Not that it's not now, but it was different. So every day you would go to practice or you would play a match, even though it was a challenge match or just a normal match, you would feel there was that heat. So there was a time in my career that I lost it a little bit, and my father would just take off from watching me at a tournament or something when I would have such behavior, which at that time, it was enough to create a distress in my behavior and maybe led me to lose a match, but it was totally my fault. So I would do the same thing if I would have a kid. I cannot stand somebody yelling on the court, throwing rackets, breaking things. It's just something that I just cannot stand. So that's the only thing. So overall, I think I got very lucky.
Yeah, my stepdad was the same way with football. Like if I was playing like shit, he was just, he'd leave a game completely. I'd like look in the stands and he wouldn't be there, and then I'd come home and he'd be like, "You were playing like garbage. I'm not gonna watch that." Like,
totally, that's right.
Yeah, okay, man. Well, I guess I'll play better next time. Totally. And I did. But you mentioned the pressure of those matches at IMG. What is it about because you're not the only athlete. I used to work with collegiate athletes quite a bit, and some professional athletes, and they say the same thing. There's just something about that environment that you get put in, right, where you have this immense amount of pressure to compete, right? Not even necessarily pressure to succeed, but pressure to compete, which will lead to future success as you start to get into real matches in the ATP and other tournaments. What is it about that pressure that you found? Because clearly it was something that you sought after, or you would have just left IMG, right? So what is it about that pressure that really high performing athletes really seek?
My experience at Academy and what the Academy actually tried to do was to reproduce the same pressure that you might have at a tennis tournament at a high level, because I'm a big fan of talking to kids like talking to an adult. That's how you expand their brains. And the same way you train them. So if you make them feel that they are, even though they're 12, 13, they train like, or even more than a professional player. So you got to treat them as a professional player. So you got to also put them at times in environments where you can simulate the actual tennis match on the ATP or the WTA Tour. So at that time in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, I was at the Academy in 92 and on, when Agassi was there, Sampras, big players.
Some of the biggest.
Yeah, some of the biggest. Yeah, there were many more, of course, but now, these are some of the names that even people that don't know about tennis would know. Salish, Mary Pierce, Sharapova, and so on. So they would just throw you in this pot and deal with it. We gave you the tools, and now it's up to you to use the best that you can. So the structure at that time was extremely competitive. I remember on the practice school, because it was scheduled in this way. After school, you would eat, get on court, or do the track hour. So you would run, plyometrics, all the footwork, and so on. So accordingly, what was your rotation, you would have three things: the track, the practice course, which is drills, and then the match play every single day. Sometimes match play would be before, after, in the middle, vice versa. So all three areas, they were extremely competitive, because when you would be at the track, you would have to give 110% and try to be better than the others in whatever drills were given to you. Same thing, change the rotation, go on the drilling course. There will be 4 courts with 4 feeders, your coach, and then a guy on the tower, like in a military style, with a microphone, yelling at everybody. So you would have 4 courts on the right, 4 courts on the left, and then on 4 you would have many other courts. So the tower, there would be 2 towers in the middle of this 16 courts. It's 4, yeah. It was about 16 courts of the drill with 2 groups, and everybody yelling and creating this really, really, really strong energy. So no one could stop. Everybody moving the feet, even when they were waiting for the ball. So there was a lots of competition, even when there was not a match or something in play. Then we would go and play a match. You were charged up completely. So you were eating the ball. So maybe it was a little bit too much. I had a conversation with one of my old coaches over last weekend before he left for the US Open, and he told me, he says, probably we trained too much. Maybe it was too hard. But that's the way that we did. And some of you guys made it, some other ones didn't. But not everyone can become a top player at any sport or in any work field.
For sure. No, I really love the fact that you brought that up, and, sharing that information, seeing, having that convo with your coach and seeing the differences from back then and now. Question I have for you is, you working with these young athletes and stuff like that, what would you say are some of the old school methods that are very effective that you still use today and that you wish other coaches would still use? But at the same time, what are also some new school methods for coaching that you wish you knew back then and that you could have implemented?
You ask very good questions.
We've had some practice at this.
You guys are good, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a very broad conversation that we just opened with this question. I'm a big fan, and Josh knows, and he's the same. That's why we blend since the first day we met, because we have the same ideas, and I look up at him. He's a great guy, and a
Sure
great
is.
sportsman and coach.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No, of course, I talk out of my heart, and that's what I felt, and I feel. But simplicity is the key. Go back to the basics. That is in a nutshell. Now, everything around is great, looks great on Instagram without saying anything, but I don't know how much of functionability has all this stuff. I'm sure there's a big business behind with equipment, training methods, and so on. But at the end of the day, whether you are somebody that just does it for the wellness, or you want to become a professional athlete, or you're already a professional athlete in any sport, the basics is the most important thing. And those things, those basic movements, you cannot really tweak them or anything. That's the core of training. Now, we have to take in consideration that there's been an evolution. I can talk on the tennis side, but I'm sure in every other sport as well. On the materials and the equipment that you're using, for us would be the rackets, would be the shoes, which is very important. And the material, the clothes, yes and no. Of course, they are much lighter and more dynamic, but the actual parts, the moving parts, is the racket that can lead to injuries if it's not well properly balanced. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And the shoes, of course. But extremely important, what there's been an evolution, and that's what we probably needed, was the rehabilitation. Understanding how much each player, each individual, every player is different. That specific individual player, what needs, what does not need as much, and how can we create a plan to make him maximize without breaking him down at a young age, so that he can have a longevity in his sport and then later on in his life, because you got to think about your own health.
For sure.
Sports is a great thing, but it's 1/3 of your life, professional sport, if you reach the level, and then the rest, you got to live your life. And it's not only about sports. You can be still involved in sports, but you don't want to end up in the hospital and being somebody that was famous, and that's about it. So that's a big thing. And in tennis, in the last 10 years, I would say, there's been a huge evolution in playing a little bit less and doing more work in the training room, and having a physio that would rehabilitate you and regenerate you and rebuild you every single day. The top players, and that's the only way Roger can play still at 28, 38, 39 years old.
Amazing.
It's because they understood that from the football people. You guys know very well that you get broken down very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Josh and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was at FAU, I don't know if you knew this, but I trained the men's and women's tennis teams at FAU, and those guys would love to get after it in the weight room. They were honestly one of my favorite groups to train, because like 1 through 11, the guys on the team, they all trained super hard. They all got it. They all understood that, they were going to improve their play on the court if they were more mobile, if they were a little more resilient, right? And they could handle a little more of a beating, so you can, take that extra step in the volume of your training on the court, right? I mean, you talked about maybe you guys trained a little too hard. 8 hours seems like quite a bit, You
see, when you're a young guy, you have to train more hours. Once you start playing the juniors and then the pros, you are playing so much on the court, like the NBA players. They play so much every second day that they train less, because it's like training, being out there. So tennis, you play a tournament every day, every second day for a week, 2 weeks US Open, if you're lucky, you get to the semis and finals, but that's about it. Then you might have some days off. It was a little different kind of training that said, we're not like the NBA players, so we can train as much outside. In reality, it's not, because you're still a lot under pressure. The mental part drains you also. So it can lead also to injuries and mental breakdowns and stuff like that. So it's extremely important to gauge the training outside, even at a young age, and have as less impact as possible, because playing on clay court, on grass is one thing. Once you start playing on hard court, which is 75% of the scheduling of the tournaments.
Which did you like more, clay or grass? Which did you play better
I
on?
love indoor carpet.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just love indoor carpet. I like the speed. I like the sound. It's just unique. And all my time that I played in Northern Europe and Switzerland also, because I was in Switzerland for a long time, and I would train in Switzerland and then play all over. But it was unbelievable. But yeah, I remember, playing a lot in the northern part of Europe, which is, the Netherlands and stuff like that. And pretty much you always play indoors, and it's just looking forward.
How did you balance your, because obviously you were strength training when you were at IMG and playing a lot, but, once you got to the professional level, how did you balance the in-season work you had to do with the strength training and the recovery work that you had to do in order to, compete at a high level for the entirety of the season?
You basically find a comparison with other schools, let's say. Other schools doesn't have to be another academy, but other training methods that have used other players from all over the world. The academy, yes, is the biggest place in the world to train, but it's not the only one. and the system that we adopt is not the only one. So I was extremely lucky when I got a chance to go to the Swiss Federation. I was called to practice in the Swiss Federation in 1997. And I could see how Europeans would actually train players. And it was a substantial difference between my American way of MBTA to the European. Less hours, more direct. And I don't want to take anything away from the academy. I'm a big fan of Nick. To me, Nick is Nick Bollettieri. He's a great coach, great friend, and nothing to say. To me, he's my mentor. But you gotta keep your mind open. You gotta look at your horizons much broader. And I could see that the training was very precise and very minimal, we would say. But everybody was improving tremendously, and I was lucky enough to be in at a time that the Swiss Federation was starting to shift and becoming really putting themselves on the map in a sense of having really big players. Higgins was already number one in the world. Marc Rosset was top 5, I believe, or top 10 in the world, and then there was a few other young players that they were growing. And they were extremely good, and one of them was Roger Federer at 16.
Wow. So I know we've spoken a pretty good amount about the training and these and seeing how these new methods of recovery and awareness and now understanding that not more is not always better, and understanding that the long-term effects that it can have on your body in games, so on and so forth. Something I wanted to ask you, seeing all these new methods that are great and that work and that help, I don't know if you agree, but something that I feel like I've seen different or maybe a lack of, and I know it depends on the person too, but would you say competitively, grit, work hard, there's always been, I feel like I've seen in old school players, there's always been that extra edge of going above and beyond, or just having that extra competitiveness that I just feel like with newer players now and today, sometimes they're missing that. And I feel like that also was very important. Obviously, understanding that there's a tremendous awareness, understanding like, hey, there's a time to push beyond your limits and there's a time not to, so you don't get hurt. But would you agree that there was that mental edge with a lot of the old school players just because of the way that thought process was? And you see it with basketball too. You see it in NBA players. Look at the days of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, where these guys were just they go out there to compete. And it wasn't like, oh, all this friendly stuff, all this stuff where you see now more with NBA players. And you saw the competitive edge, the way that, you know, it was back then. Would you say that that was a component in tennis back then? And would you say that that's something that's missing that could help players in today's world in understanding how to use that the right way?
I would say they were a different breed of people. And
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to be careful when you give an interview and what you're saying. Those people that you've mentioned, which are the greatest of their sports, and in tennis, I can say a couple of names as well. They grew up raw, without Instagram of this situation, the help from the sponsors, all this media attention that at the end of the day, there's a big funnel behind that makes a lot of money. So they had to go out and think about how to get better than their friends, opponents, and win, and think about winning, not thinking about every other thing. So nowadays, I'm not saying it's weaker, but it's too corporate. And I don't care what people say. That's the way I feel, and unfortunately. So that leads to a big show out there, which is great for tickets, great for sponsors, for sales of clothing and so on, but it's not as precise, I see, and it goes along also the techniques of the players and everything. They might be trained at a higher level, no doubt about that, with all this technology, and that's great. But you see flosses in their, I talk about tennis, in their techniques or in their movement also, that the materials and the environment tends to bypass and don't point it down and make them work really hard. I'm not saying that they don't work hard. They still work hard, but it's not the same effort and intensity, I would say, except those few outliers, of course, like Nadal and stuff, Djokovic also, that that there's a bigger percentage from the 80s and 90s that were working really hard versus the ones now that really don't work as hard. And I see I was on the court with Paul Forsyth, is my old coach, and the guy that I mentioned, they went to the US Open, and used to be the director of the academy. I did some of the history of Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy. And I was on the court with few top junior players in the world and a couple of ATP players. And great players. But there were little things that they were not doing properly that we were discussing with Paul, and he agreed completely. And this is because also the materials had an evolution. The new rackets allow you to hit harder, more precise. They're usually bigger profiles, without getting too much into specifications. But the way of hitting now is way different than before. So there's been an evolution of the grips. Before was, well, we started out with a continental in the ancient times. And when I was playing, it was very popular, the Eastern, and then the semi-Western and going to a Western. So more you go Eastern, Western, and semi-Western, there is a more severe grip. So there's different heights, how you're going to hit the ball, and but at the end of the day, more you go to the Western, and more you start slapping the ball more. So you're keeping the ball on the strings less. And that's what is missing on the technique of these young kids. They slap the ball extremely hard. They don't keep the ball on the strings that much. Agassi came out with a 12-inch rule, 6-inch before hitting the ball and 6-inch after. So that, what does it mean? That with the elbow you stay long with the ball. So I was having this conversation on the courts with the kids. Paul had me talk to them, and one of the things was you guys could play much heavier and have a heavier ball, so that the opponent is going to feel the heat and the heaviness of your shots by just doing exactly what you're doing, but instead of pulling up a little bit too quick, just stay a little bit longer. few more inches, that's enough to make you from a good to a great player. And that was one of the minor things that I've seen with them and some other players also in the professional to top 50 in the world, that they're young, 20, 21, 22, they're great players, but they could be great. Good, but they're great. They could be great.
I think it's amazing that in all sports and everything in life, sometimes you see that there are old missing components that can really change the game for somebody, and some things that, disappear that you're like, man, I wish that was still, implemented or still going on, into whatever sport somebody's playing. So I appreciate you sharing that, and telling our listeners more about how that works.
Of course, sorry interrupting. Of course, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you could not play like now because the materials were not evolved like now.
Right.
But that pushed you to have a better technique. Now you can have little flosses, little hitches, and you can still get away. So at that time, with those materials, you had to have a proper technique. Now, you can I would say
get away with
get away a little bit with it. Of course, at that level, is that one ball that makes a difference. When you're a professional player and you're playing against at that level with big players, one ball can change the match. That specific ball, if you have little hitches here and there, when you get tight, you might miss it.
It's like these, baseball players in the Dominican Republic and these poor countries that they're playing baseball with a stick and a little rock.
Yeah.
So imagine when they start hitting a baseball that's this big compared to a rock or compared to something smaller, it just, it's crazy to see when you hear those
and you
stories.
brought up a good point too about, social media and technology and the things that kids have available to them now. Like when we were all growing up, those didn't exist, right? You were outside. Yep. If you played tennis, you played tennis. I played football and basketball. We were at the courts from sun up until they turned the lights off at, midnight, 1 a.m. Just playing basketball, just playing pickup. We weren't on our phones, like wondering what our friends were doing on their summer vacation.
Posting the best shots.
Yeah. None of that existed. So it was just go out and play and get better and compete.
We're concentrating more on ourselves than others.
I wish we could go back to that, Although I think we all have benefited from social media clearly.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
I think that there's a time and a place, and
exactly.
That was something we always try to keep my younger sister away from,
Yeah, well, you need to adapt to the changes. And driving here with my good friend Luciano, we were talking about this, and people don't adapt. Sometimes they don't adapt, and that's one big mistake, because then you will be behind.
Yeah, I know. You've been, not to kind of jump off topic, but I think it kind of ties in nicely. Is I know you've been building out your own training program with agility and some
tennis.
Some tennis and racket work, right? So tell us a little bit about what you've been developing over. I know it's been quite a while since you've been starting this whole process.
Well, this vision started about 25 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, but it started getting shape about 6 years ago. Due to an injury that I had, and the doctor told me that I was not supposed to play tennis anymore. I broke my left foot on during practice on a tennis ball, stepped on it going back, and told me that I could not play anymore. So months later, I had to find a different way. I still wanted to play a different way. So to rehabilitate myself, no one could really help me. So I started playing tennis in the swimming pool. So I reproduce every single movement in the water by keeping the water pretty much chest level. And by simulating forehand, backhand, volley, serve, slice, every shot, every movement, ladder movement, shuffling, forward, backward, jumping. But there was no high impact. So I was working the same thing that I would work on a tennis court, but with no impact. Second thing, I would do it without shoes or socks. So the calcareous bottom of the pool, when you move, it creates a little centrifugal force when you do the swing that throws you off. And if you step or stump too hard, you slide and you go under the water. So no big deal. But that teaches you to control the ground and don't let the ground control you.
Yeah, last thing you want
Love
in
that.
tennis or really any sport is be heavy-footed, right?
Exactly. And you see a lots of kids that they just walk with entire part of the foot or run, and that slows you down, especially if you have big feet, especially if no one tells you that you might have to put shoes that are designed a little bit thinner than bigger shoes. Without making any differences, usually Adidas shoes are a little bit more bulkier for good stability when you slide and so on. But to move around, it's like having ski boots. So some of the players with big feet should always play with very thin soles, like the side of the sole, not the bottom, but the side, so that you can control it, because it's very important to walk on the court. Lots of people think you're running. Yes, you're running, you're moving, but if you read the ball fast enough, you're already moving. So the less you are stumping, jumping, running, and the better it is, because otherwise it will create an imbalance into the shot. So the more you move laterally, forward or backwards, by reading the ball fast and walking towards the direction, that allows you to cut the angles, first of all, gain time, ball travel, so you be more aggressive just by moving in that way. But it's important because you're not creating an imbalance into the shot because you're not jumping. So on the pool, because of the friction of the water and everything, you're sliding, so you're lifting your foot up just a little bit, enough to move, but not a lot. And it forces you to move in a different way. So I was a big fan of that. That's how my Y system, that's how I called it, started. But I never really did anything with it except doing it for myself, training. And I'm a big fan. To whatever you do in life, you got to go through yourself.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah, especially with training.
It's like
Yeah,
you win a
me
lottery.
and Josh talk about that always.
You win a lottery, you don't know how to deal with the money. You're going to depend on somebody. But if you worked and you made that money, you're going to think twice before spending it.
That's right.
in stupid
Yeah,
stuff.
100%.
So the same thing is the training. You got to be out there. You got to try. And you know very well, I've seen you training and stuff. And reading is amazing. I would see him every day studying. He did it for himself, but to give to people, to others, his knowledge. But he had to try it on himself.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever he was reading, those were the tools given by other people that studied and wrote it. But then, does that really going to work for me or not? So he created his own method, his own way of teaching, with the huge know-how that he has, and that's what you need to be. If you're a tennis coach, you need to have knowledge of training outside the tennis court, knowing how the rackets should be, and know a little bit about rehabilitation also. I'm not saying you have to be an expert, but you have to know a little bit of everything to be able to blend in. And if you are lucky enough that you can have a team, you know how to spot out the other components. Otherwise, you will never succeed in transferring your knowledge to that specific player, so that player will never exceed.
For sure. No, and it obviously shows, everything you're doing is truly amazing. And, the level of work, being an athlete and as a coach, is through the roof. I want to ask you, personally, having been an athlete, now being a coach, experiencing both, what would you say has been more challenging for you? Being the athlete or being the coach? And where have you found more happiness doing so?
It's a mixture. Because when you're an athlete, you have the rush of going out there and play and win, try to win, perform, exceed your performance. You have the rush of the travels. You're traveling the world. You're seeing different cultures, but you're always looking forward. You don't know what's going to happen in the next day, in the next hour, in the next minute. Even though somehow you try to control things, there's always an unknown. So that if you're the kind of human being, that gives you a great rush, and is second to none. So when you are a player on the tour at a decent level, most likely you become a traveling coach and you have somehow the same life. Now there's coaches that stay in tennis for the rest of their life. Some other ones, they take other routes, other paths. But there's always a very hard separation between a professional athlete and then making the transition to coaching. Well, hitting partner and then coaching. Usually when you're on the tour, you become a hitting partner and then a coach. Not everyone. Some of them did that path. I did that path. I was lucky enough to be chosen by some of the big players, and that's what I did. But then was not enough. Was not enough because I went through a lot through my career, lots of good moments and lots of bad moments. I have a big history of cramps. Everybody knows. I rushed to the hospital a few times. It was pretty rough. And no one could really find out what it was. Later on, some stuff came up, especially when I went to the Gatorade, when they gave me the chance to go to the Gatorade Sports Institute and do the testing, came up certain values that we were not expecting. So my play got better because of that. But it was already too late. But it's never too late, accordingly to me, because you'll always learn. So I think I acquired lots of knowledge from those times being in the pool and changing to the transition on the court and simulating an actual ball point on the court without having anybody on the other side, just by myself for hours and hours, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, pool and on court training. And I've always been disciplined, but it brought me up to a higher level of discipline because I was coaching myself. I was my own coach at a very young age. That bad incidents that happened to me allow me to push me to a higher level on a level that I was not imagining. So I reimagined my limit. And that, at the same time, which I did not know at the time, I was building a stronger character and a lots of knowledge of something that I was developing that I didn't know I was. So, because I was concentrating on myself and going back on the court and play. So, the remuneration, how you say that word?
Repetition?
No, remunerate.
I'm a redneck from upstate New York. I'm gonna butcher that too.
Don't ask me. I'm from Miami.
I'm an international student. Anyways, I'll get the word later. But basically, the payback that I had was that I built this this knowledge that later on, when to catch back what I was saying, it was not enough. I wanted to create something for two reasons. One, I thought I had something that I could help others. If I can help one person, for me, it's a great thing. So through my experience and to what I've created with a Y system, to empower young kids, even some athletes, to do things differently. And second thing, I just wanted to narrate my story, which I think it's a little bit different. Some people might like it, some people not, but I think it's different in a different way. I'm writing a book, but it's not out. So once it's, until it's not out, it doesn't really matter. But do it visually. So my pattern is a visual pattern that I reproduce tennis movements on a court. And before hitting the ball, you got to get to the ball. So you got to get to the ball with the right technique, the fastest you can. So minimizing the steps and so on. So I created this visual pattern that can empower beginners, intermediate, and even some athletes with all the knowledge that I have acquired from the movement and from different kind of training on and off the court, rehabilitation, and try to minimize possible injuries, which is a big thing.
Amazing.
I think you, not only on the court, but off the court have done a great example of, teaching younger athletes or, athletes that are coming up through the ranks, not only how to be a great tennis player, a great person, but also learning the importance of diversifying the things that you're involved in, right? Because at least my own experience, right? Athletes tend to go, or most athletes, right, tend to just go all in on the athletic side. And some of them make a decent amount of money. And then all that money runs out when they stop playing because they just spend it, right? Whereas, we were talking before about the other companies that, you've been a part of and you've been able to build. And I've been able to see some of the work and the craftsmanship that goes into Itocraft, right? I said that right?
Itocraft.
Yeah. With the kitchen installations and cabinetry and all that stuff that you've been able to build. And even that in itself, right? You can tell the specificity and the attention that you put into whatever project you're working on, right? I've obviously been able to see the effort that you put in on the training side, and then to be able to kind of see that translate into things off the court that have nothing to do with fitness or nothing to do with athletics, right, is actually pretty amazing, because not many people are able to be successful in multiple areas of business, and whether we like it or not, athletics is a business, so I don't know if you want to kind of dive into that at all, but I thought it's pretty interesting, how you were able to kind of develop Itocraft, and we talked about the car dealership that you have also in the design district.
Yeah. So it doesn't really tie in much, sports and construction, let's say, if we want to call it so.
But business.
But there is a common denominator, which is the same discipline that I've learned throughout the sports. I always think that sports will get you ready for the real life. That's the beginning of your life. So if you're lucky enough that you have done all the steps and you got at a high level, you experienced every level. So it's like building a company from the bottom to the top. So you have the kind of discipline, regardless how much money you made. If you made little bit or a lot, doesn't matter. But you went through a course with all the obstacles and all the joys. And so when you transfer that to a completely different field, as in us, the kitchen business, cabinet business, you bring in the same discipline. And that will give you an edge versus the competition. Because the ones that are successful, even in their actual business, are the ones that are very, very unique, a little bit freaky, because you got to be
a little crazy.
You got to be a little bit off, yes,
yeah.
To succeed in anything.
You're preaching to the choir over here, man.
Yeah. You have to be. You have to be. That's one of the characteristics that I've seen, and I've always been very interested when I meet somebody that is different. Weird is probably not the word. It's different.
Josh knows I'm different.
Oh yeah. No, you're weird. You're weird.
Yeah. and that gives you that gives you the unicity that
yeah, it gives you an edge.
It gives you an edge, exactly. So going back to the kitchen company, to Itocraft, I was lucky enough to meet Alex Sakostis, which is the president and founder and the genius behind the company, and the actual engine. And many years ago, I was approached and to be part of it, and we became great friends, and so on. So slowly, I got involved more and more, and it's been a great journey because it's different, but it's something that really excites me for the simple reason that my father was the biggest developer in the northern East Africa, infrastructure. A little bit different from what Itocraft does, but still construction. So that's something that I'm very proud, that gets me closer to what my father was, but controlled all by myself. So maybe he will be proud of me a little bit, but that's what I'm involved now, and that's what gives me that fire inside. And I treat, when there is a project or something, whether it is a high-rise or just a private home, a spec home, I treat it the same way with that hunger of going on a tennis court.
Even you showing me the samples one day, I remember. Yeah. I was like, man, this guy's fired up.
Yeah. And I really love it because I cure it as I'm curing my Y system. So I put the same amount of effort. It can get out of hands because there's two completely different things and it can get really busy. But You don't succeed. You don't become an outlier if you don't go the extra step. Otherwise, you'll be like.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm great you said that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad. I'm really glad that you said that.
I wanted to bring up, athlete, coach, business owner, and bringing up that discipline that you talked about, the similarity. Knowing that you have tools, systems in place as an athlete and as a coach to keep that growth going, what are some of the tools and systems that you like to use as a business owner to make sure you keep growing and winning, and also as well, keeping you up to date with everything that's moving forward in technology?
Curiosity. If you lose the curiosity, you'll die. So the world is of many different colors. So you got to keep your mind open to anything. You never know what to expect in the next minute. When we walk out from here, we don't know. I don't even know what kind of question you're going to ask me. Because all your
We
questions,
like to keep you on your toes.
All your questions are unbelievable.
I'm always like, Josh, keep your mind open on my ideas.
Yeah. Oh my God. He comes in here all the time like, yo, I got 15 things that we can work on. I'm like, fuck, here. All right, here we go. Here we go. I'm going to be up for a couple of days.
So Instagram, it's a great tool for me in this regard because it allows me to travel the world in a matter of a couple of swipes. And I can look at different kind of projects all around the world, different architectures. I love architecture. I'm a big fan of minimal architecture. I just gave an interview last week about what's my dream house, what's my dream car.
Amen.
And yeah.
What is your dream car?
I would say in the interview, that's easy to answer. I picked the F40 just from the fact that it's a very iconic Ferrari. And there's not that many out there, especially the one with the fiberglass windows, which is even more limited. It's only for a few special people. And that's a car that would always hold the value, no doubt about that. It would always go up in value, but it's something that created an era of Enzo Ferrari, which is very unique. There's many other cars, of course, that create an era of Enzos, but I don't know, the F40 has always been something that is still a very raw car. You feel all the little noises, vibrations, the sound of the engine, which is music to me, and so on. So that would be the car. In regard of projects and everything, Frank Lloyd Wright, it's a great architect.
It's a legend.
And it's a legend. Le Corbusier, which is a completely different schooling, I appreciate as well. But at the end of the day, I like to see all different styles to open my mind as much as I can. I remember living in, we always had beautiful houses in Africa. And I remember the last one that we had was, I don't know how big it would be right now, but I was very small at the time, so I thought it was a palace. And he had a big hole in the middle with a garden. And when it would rain into the house. But the house would not get wet. It was built in a very unique way. So at a very young age, I grew up with this very eclectic style. And now that I'm involved in construction, I have people that ask me suggestions, how they would do their house, their bathroom, their kitchen, or whatever. And I always try, the way that I see a space of a house, it's bringing the outside, the nature, inside, and blending with the landscape, everything, without interrupting and disturbing their surroundings and the nature. So integrating the design with what it is around. So the house that, one of the houses that we just finished about 1.5 years ago or so was Lenar's house in Star Island, and that's the interview that I gave. That is a great example. Come in on the left side of the garden. There is this long slope that you can actually walk on the roof of the car, of the house.
Amazing.
So, and it's all nice, very cool plants and very beautiful. And then there is this 30-foot tree in the middle of the house.
How How tall are the ceilings?
Well, there's no ceiling because
so
it's
like
open.
wrapped around.
It's
Okay.
open. It's open. So the tree is basically going outside the house, but it starts, of course, in the house, and it's just beautiful. And that reminds me, I picked that house because it reminds me a little bit of the house that the last house that we had in Tanzania. So I like to play a lot with the natural colors and natural materials. I don't like things that look like they have to be, or otherwise I don't like to use them. So concrete, which I love concrete. Call me crazy. My favorite building in Miami, it's 1111 Lincoln Road.
Yeah.
Parking lot with the penthouses on the top.
Super cool.
Yeah.
It's just
The developer that is a
Yeah.
is a genius.
and
He's got that new project in Alapata
yes.
he's been working
yes, and I like concrete with unfinished look, woods from all over the world, according to where the structure is and what kind of landscape has, glass, big glass windows, and then opening spaces, and a little bit of Art Deco of these roofs with holes in the roofs and stuff. So that's kind of my style.
on. You've been seeing a lot of that here in Miami recently, right? The
Oh, yeah.
the darker tones, right? Little, darker grays, black, like lighter blacks on the exterior of houses, tons of glass windows, floor to ceiling.
Yeah, every 7 years, usually the style changes. So it goes with the colors. So now we are on a wave of these grays, which I'm a big fan. I've always been according to the
too.
7 years,
Yeah.
the mouse gray. I call it the mouse gray, this kind of grays. Even on cars, Porsches has got beautiful
Oh
grays.
yeah. One of my clients has I think a 64 Jag, and it's that same type of but shimmery.
That it
By
comes-
the way, when this podcast blows up and I have enough money, I'm going to tell you to come help me.
Yeah, he's the man for that, man.
And that gray came from the military.
Mhm.
They had so much paint, and that's how some of the cars were painted that color. And used to be a very ugly color, very sad color. Now it's got a lot of hype, and I've always loved that color. And so the grays, these kind of colors are what they are. And then we're doing a lots of stuff with whites, which it's always in style, mixed with woods.
Yeah, you see a lot of that on
Matte.
the
Matte.
Yes.
Yes.
right? A lot of
Yes.
the darker wood tones paired with the white exterior.
So any cool, interesting, maybe tennis buildings you'll work on? Doing some kind of
Like complex.
I don't know, some
You
facility
gonna get into any of
or
that?
Any of that?
No, there was an idea a while back with Alex to do a sports complex with to push it a little bit, and having also a youth building in a sense of doing something that revolves around sports. So the bottom part was all about sports, and whoever would buy or rent the unit would be really involved in sports, whether it was a sports person or not, it did not matter, but they liked that lifestyle. We ended up not doing anything yet. I don't know if it's going to be something in the future, but for now, but that was basically what it was, and everything would have revolved around the Y system, which is not only a tennis-specific system, but it can, by reproducing certain movements from other sports, can be reproduced for other sports, and then normal workouts, because it can be done. It can be very versatile.
I mean, every time I talk to you, man, I always get super motivated, super excited about, pushing myself farther. I know, we talk about training quite a bit every time I see you on South Beach, and all the other projects you have going on are, obviously doing very well and only have, enormous growth, especially down here in Miami with Itelcraft and everything. I can't believe it. We've almost hit an hour already, man.
Really?
I know you and I probably could talk for like days on end.
No, this is fun. This is
Days
really
on
interesting.
end. I know Menda's going to have a couple of questions to wrap everything up. But before we do that, where can everyone find you on social media, or find your programs or Itelcraft?
Okay, on Instagram, of course, I'm Yury Bettoni, which is my first and last name. Facebook is the same. I try to keep it very simple. Twitter, Same thing. Not
You big on Twitter?
Not big on Twitter.
Just retweeting?
Not big on Twitter. I still try to understand it. But no, Instagram, Facebook, it's YouTube. I'm rebuilding my channel. And soon I'm gonna come out with a new website. I had a little bit of a problem in the process of rebuilding the website, but it's gonna be something new coming up. And then my good friend Luciano, if he gives me the time of the day, he's gonna help me out to shoot the new actual tutorial. Because I have over 100 tutorials now. I call them tutorials, but they're videos of experiences that I had on the court, matched them with some of the footwork. And I've created these short clips of a minute, which you can see part of them on Instagram, and they will be uploaded into the YouTube channel pretty soon. But the actual tutorial, it will be shot once I finish to manufacture my Y-Base, which is a very simple device, equipment that helps recognizing the position of the foot and which closed stance, open stance, semi-open stance, natural stance, which kind of stand should you use for that specific ball in that situation, ball situation. And so I will be shooting this new tutorial, which I'm very excited. Working on my little clothing line. Yeah, it was, not that I want to be...
Tanya, this man does everything.
No,
Is it all fashion or is it sports fashion?
I don't want to sound like the Japanese, with all the respect to the Chinese of the situation, but I don't like to do many things. Everything that I do has to be wrapped in with a vision. So the main vision, it's me empowering the Y system with my know-how. And then my clothing line is going to be a streetwear, where it's going to be shirts, shorts, and sweaters.
Like athleisure?
It's going to have grays and wood colors.
The wood, no. You were good with a gray. I like black on black, stuff like that. Keep it very simple and minimal.
It's music to my ears right there, man.
Exactly.
I love
That's why I said that.
Yeah.
I'll rock it for sure.
And I would, in the concept is going to have my logo, of course, and my concept, which is mobility, stability, and velocity, is the 3 Ys. And I came up with this thing. So everything that it's in life, that it's in sports, has to involve mobility, stability, and velocity. But if you really think about, it's all about the 3 Ys also in real life. Mobility, you gotta be flexible mentally to recognize a situation in on the court. But at the same time, a situation in business also, or even at home in your household. Stability, you gotta have a firm mind. Don't overreact. Same thing on the court, you gotta be cold. Same thing in a workforce. Same thing if you're playing the stocks, you gotta stay firm and wait. And then velocity is not always about, we are in a very frenetic world, and it's not always faster, bigger, faster. It's not always faster, better.
Directed.
Sometimes by slowing down the speed, you'll perform, your movement will be more centered, and the output will be more precise and effective. Same thing in life. You might wait a week. Don't overreact. And maybe you'll find yourself in a better position, or maybe sometimes you gotta act fast. So the 3 Ys is something very simple I came up, and I developed an agility speed ladder. Abusing myself with all these different footworks and everything that I did, and it's just. And then one day I said, I gotta come up with this. I spent so much time on this. I abused my body so much on it. Let's make more of it. And I started developing and watching my body, that sometimes the faster I was going, and it was throwing me off from the center line of performing the actual movement. So by slowing down a little bit, actually I was faster on the agility speed ladder. And the outcome, the sprint afterwards or whatever, was more dynamic.
I mean, like you said before, mastering the basics, right?
Yeah.
Always having that solid foundation of quality basic movement.
And I really love that you have this thing, you stick to your system, and it shows up in all areas of your life. And I think that's one thing a lot of people lack, and they don't move forward and grow to certain levels because they don't have a system. you know, or they don't have something they go by and live by every single day.
Well, and consistency, right? You talked about 25 years of refinement getting to this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of people lose sight of that. They think that they're just going to come up with this magical, you know, infrastructure that they can, you know, then grow and build businesses off of, and it you know, or build a career off of. And it doesn't work like that. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen for most people within a week. It takes 20 years. It takes, you know, Mendes and I have been in the fitness industry for over 10 years apiece. It takes, you know, years and years of failure and trying things out in order to get to the level that we're at.
You know, I'm a big fan of, you know, sometimes, you know, you win a match or even kids says, I won. I said, that's great. You won the tournament. That's great. Does not mean you did everything right. Sometimes it's better to take a harsh loss. It forces you to sit with your coach, your family member, whatever, and analyze everything. Once you win, you get excited. And sometimes you get, unless you have that specific coach or somebody around that is got the extra knowledge that will stop you and says, you did everything great until this point. You should have done better here. Otherwise, you will never get to the higher level if you don't analyze every single, even today that we're doing this beautiful interview, which I appreciate again, guys.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Whenever you want to push anything that you're working on, we'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, when you're ready to release that book, come back out. We'll dig deep into it.
I gotta get that.
Pressure.
Is it based on the whys?
No, it's about my life.
Okay.
It's about my life, and of course, it's got different parts. So it's got my youth and what Africa gave me. What I got out of Africa and experiences, and then my sports career, and then the transition to business, and then at the end my system and so on. So going back to what I was saying before, it's very important to pause for a second and just regroup and learn from what you've just done. This interview, I'm gonna walk out extremely happy, but you know, I'm going to think about what I could have done better and appreciate what the opportunity, of course, and what I have probably said right. So that's something that will allow you to always grow. Otherwise, this experience will be on the podcast and everything, but it will be lost for my own growth. And each of us, I think, in the world, we should always analyze what we had just done in anything and then learn from it. I was lucky at a very young age to be part of a very elite group of people. I became the youngest coach probably in the history of tennis. I don't know. I don't want to brag by any means, but at 22 I was coaching a top 50 player in the world.
Easy.
And before that I was traveling as a hitting partner, and on and off I was also helping out, coaching and stuff, different kind of players. I've traveled with Mary Pierce when she was 3 in the world, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario when she was 1, Roger Federer for 4 years, training on and off the court with him. And you learn from these people, the greatest players, that they have certain characteristics that are common among this elite class. And of course, this discipline is a glare in their eyes that is different from normal people. It's very different. They have an edge. They try to steal everything with their eyes, with their ears. They don't talk that much. Roger used to get very goofy. Still now is very goofy sometimes, in private, in closed doors, among his people that he feels comfortable with. But when he has to kick in the Roger Federer tennis player, he switches. I remember little incidents or anecdote in Rome. We were joking around in the gym prior to go to our practices. At that time, I was not traveling with him anymore, but and we were joking around and shooting the shit and stuff like that. And as soon as we walked out from the tunnel and there were the people outside, you know, the spectators and everything, going to the courts, there was an Italian Open. It says, "Hey, Big Y, talk to you later." And he completely changed. And I felt goosebumps because I know Roger. We used to share the room together. We used to be always together. And I know him like since he was a kid. And seeing changing pace like that, says this is Roger Federer. This is an edge. So that thing of being able to change the two behaviors just because you're getting off the door, you're getting off the door from the gym and everything over there and getting to the public, that shows you that on the court, this guy can switch in a heartbeat the pace. And I've seen it. It's a common denominator that I've seen with all these big players. Arantxa Sanchez, which was not in the world, very nice lady, very cool. But when she switched. When there is an opportunity, they pick that opportunity, they take it.
100%.
They don't wait. They don't. That's about the third why, the velocity.
I mean, hesitation will kill you.
Exactly.
So would you say that's something that you're born with or something you have to create and something that you have to build up to?
That's a very good question. And
I think it could be a mix.
And I've seen in racing carts, which is the beginning, and that's where you build your bones. You have kids that race with you that have no fear. I think everybody has fear. I don't think when people say I don't have fears.
Oh, they're lying.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that they're lying, Josh. I think that it's more they know at a young age how to handle it, handle the pressure.
That's a good point.
They know better to handle the pressure than the majority of the people. So, young kids racing, you see some of them that they're just a mess on the track and they crash and they don't follow the lines and everything. Some other ones, they're very precise. They follow the lines. They might crash, but they take chances. They take chances all the time. And those ones, you don't teach that.
It's like that movie.
Probably,
Ford versus Ferrari.
Exactly. They probably don't win, but they will eventually.
Yeah.
Because they're taking chances. They're different than others. So those ones...
Well, they're going to learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. So those ones are the ones that actually you have to pick if you're a scouter. And those are the characteristics. Once you pick those characteristics, you can build. The base is there. They have something more than somebody else. And I've seen this with professional. I've met Roger, bring back Roger, but is a perfect example. I met him when he was 16. He was a little bit of a brat on the court. He was not keeping always a concentration, but it was a big base. There was a glance in his eye. He was a fighter. He had the fire in him. He was very. He was always testing people how far he would get with any of his friends until somebody would blow up and say, "Fuck off, man! You're annoying. Really, you're annoying." And then he says, "Okay, I got you. That's when I got you. I know how far I can get." And that's something that I think separates the actual outliers in any sport, in any work field, to the majority of the people, which there's nothing wrong with that. We are all different, so we gotta be different.
It's like you hear about Michael Jordan.
Always pushing people.
Always pushing people.
Yeah. Always finding where the cracks were.
How many times did he fail?
Mm-hmm.
How many times did he get rejected?
Since he was a kid.
Yeah.
What was his characteristics? Go back, go back, go back.
Work harder.
Look at the cyclists. They abuse themselves for hours. Runners, they stay behind until they take the chance. That mentality is extremely strong mentality. The only few people have, and those few are the ones that exceed in anything that they do, as long as they dedicate their whole passion.
Truly amazing.
Yeah. Listen, man, I think that's a great way to wrap this up. I think that's a good lesson for people to learn for the future. I appreciate you coming on, man. Always. I always love, getting the chance to talk to you and learn from you. And this was, probably the best opportunity I've had so far, seeing as we don't have any loud gym music or anything playing around. So it was awesome.
I think, I thank you guys tremendously. I really enjoyed it. You guys have a beautiful place here. I love all the little toys. It gives that energy to the space.
Yeah,
and thank you very much.
Yeah,
of course.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
I do want to ask you some quick little questions.
Sure.
Just fire through them real quick. First one. Having worked with Josh, training with him, is there anything that you've used from Josh's coaching with some of your students and your young athletes?
He's addicted to the clubs and the mace now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, I spot him out right away at the gym when I did not know him, and he kind of, I was interested in knowing this guy because you meet a lots of people, you see a lots of people, but there's always one guy that stands out sooner or later. And throughout all, I've been at Equinox for over 10 years maybe. And when he came in the first day, I said, who's this guy? You know, he's got a cool energy. I love this energy. And then we hit it off right away. We became good friends right away. Mm-hmm. Great respect because he is very humble with a huge knowledge. And not because he's here, but I would always say that about him. And I pick his brains. He did the same thing with me, but we did it in a very healthy way. And we share experiences.
Yeah.
And I think we learned from each other tremendously. So later on, when he left the gym and everything, we kept contact, and I still asked him certain things. And lately, you know, he gave me some good drills, good drills for that I could implement in the tennis. That's what I did. So I took part of his knowledge and I tried to, how can I blend it with my own stuff?
Love it.
And came up with a video that I've not posted it yet, but it will be posted. And I'm looking forward because I still have to do the actual tennis stuff with a tennis ball. But he's already edited all the stuff with the clubs and the mace, and I think it's going to be a video that is going to do very well because it's very innovative, and I have to thank him very much because
anytime, man.
And this is just one thing. Then at the gym we did so many other exercises because he comes up with all these different drills, which they're very unique. They might seem seen already on Instagram or here and there, but the way he performs, even a small little exercise, he performs it in a different way that it actually makes sense.
For sure.
And that's what I did also with my weight system. I did not reinvent the wheel. With the kitchens, we did not reinvent the kitchens. I just with the tennis and with the company, we just looked at what the competition was doing, and we tried to do it better.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Add your flavor to it.
Exactly, and that's what Josh did. You know, he looked because he's very curious, and curiosity is the beginning of a long road. And then with his knowledge, he was a winner, and that's why, you know, I watch his videos, and first of all, I like how professional he is. And also, you guys here are extremely professional, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It really excites me when I see people that really go away from everybody else, because that's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
The little things, the little minimal things are what builds the entire house. And whatever you do, you cannot expect to build a beautiful house and forget the little parts. And the same thing, you guys coming in, as soon as I walked in today, I opened the door and I look at this and Josh says, but it's a small place. I don't think it's a small place. I think it's a great place, and I think it's got a lot of energy, and I think it has history. He has life. He has passion, and that's what shows.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Both of you, how you guys run your lives, and I like to partner with people that have this kind of energy and thinking, because these are the people that together you can grow.
I agree. No, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, thanks, man. That means it's very touching. Thank you.
Question.
Don't cry.
I'm a man.
Question number 2.
I thought we were at 99.
Right? What's one thing that you would say for young tennis players in today's age that they should really focus on to take them to the next level? What's that one thing you would give them?
I hear this question all the time. And I always think...
But we asked it better, right?
That's for sure. You guys for sure asked it better. But I always try to come up with a different answer, which you can actually you cannot really come up with a different answer all the time. But I like to be unique. If I were to adjust to nowadays, spend less time on the social media and looking at other people's business, unless you are looking for something to better yourself. So it's a productive curiosity. And don't wait for anybody, but just go out there and invent whatever to make you succeed in whatever you want to do.
Love it.
Because you cannot wait for somebody like a computer. You plug in and the computer gives you the answers. There's no answers in life. There's no answers in business. There's no answers in sports. You got to find your own way. When you're out there, you're by yourself. You don't have your coach. You don't have your mom. You don't have your sister. You don't have your girlfriend. So you got to be yourself. We born alone. We die alone. Let's perform alone.
Yeah.
You guys heard it.
Came out kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, no, I love that. Real quick, last two. Wildest experience you've ever had in playing tennis?
Excuse me?
The craziest
the wildest
experience you ever had playing tennis?
It's on YouTube. You can be R-rated now.
I can give an anecdote that I had in Berlin, I think it was, in 1997. I remember in 1990, my father took me to the Italian Open to watch a tennis match. It was my first time. And I see, from being upstairs, from what I was saying about Roger being upstairs, the spectator, I was that spectator when I was little, in the 1990. And I see Emilio Sanchez, which was 4 in the world and 1, I think, in doubles, something like that, walking in with a suit and a tennis racket. And I thought this guy was really cool. And I would always saw him on TV, never saw him on real. When I see him on real, it kind of shocked me. Fast forward, 1997, 7 years later. Exactly 7 years later. We just finished the Italian Open. I was with Mary Pierce, and Craig Carden was coaching Mary, and I was a hitting partner of Mary. We won the Italian Open. And I'm sitting basically 4 seats away from where I was sitting 7 years before with my father and a friend of mine. So I was looking to the left a few times and saying, this is not me. I cannot be 4 seats down and being part of this final. It's very strange. So it played with my mind. It was a very, very unique energy that Sunday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. So Mary ends up winning the tournament, and it was incredible because at that time I was a spectator, and now I'm part of the final.
Crazy.
So it was wild.
Full circle.
Yeah. Then we fly the next day. No, the same night we fly to Berlin for the Berlin Open. And I'm practicing, I think first day or second day, I'm practicing on center court, and on TV, Emilio sees me practicing with Mary. The TV it was an internal TV, so people on center court, the TV was always on center court, so whoever was there, you could see it from the players' lounge. So he sees me practice, and I had met him before going to practice because Sven, a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, he had introduced me to him. So for me, my dream was to just shake his hand at the Italian Open 7 years before. Sven introduces me to him, and I shake his hand. So my dream came true. So it was like, oh, that's great. Fine. It doesn't finish here. So I go to practice with Mary. He sees me, go back to the players' lounge. He says, hey, Yury, how you doing? Good. I saw you hitting. You're hitting kind of well today. I said, oh, thanks. But I'm looking. I'm like, Emilio's telling me this? And I'm getting something to eat. He says, sit with me for a second. Sit with him. He says, would you like to hit a little later on today? Emilio Sanchez is asking me to hit on the court. And for me, it was incredible. Because it's like, by that time I already hit with lots of big players. But he was something that since I was little stayed in my brain. Anyway, Satan says, I'm about an hour, I can do it. So we get on the court. It was a women's tournament at that time. All the spectators came to watch practice. I don't know how many spectators were there. In a small court, everybody clustered on the court. So I was like, so I started hitting. And a couple of times I was picking up the balls to the side and looking over. I said, is that really Emilio on the other side or not? It's not possible I'm hitting with Emilio. It's just not possible 7 years later. So I think that experience gave me that that feel that it was very unique. And I repeat myself, by that time I already hit with lots of big players. Later on, I've played with lots of big players. Then, with Roger, that is probably the best player of all time, stuff. But when they ask me about that, I always tell this little anecdote that it was very, very unique.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because through hard work and belief, you will get the things you want. So, that's an amazing story. Last question, in one sentence, what's the biggest piece of advice you can leave off to all our listeners that are listening today?
I would say probably the biggest quality that I love the most is to be humble. If everybody could be humble and don't think much about fame, money, power, we will all be in a much better world. And I don't know if this, we have not mentioned it yet, this COVID-19 will teach everyone a lesson, but I think part of the people that were not really thinking, some of them would really make an effort to change their lives a little bit. I don't think everybody, but I think few people, because he had us pause for a second and think what the real values are. And going back to Africa, and then we're going to wrap it up. You grew up with the great values, with real values, and I think I've been very lucky to grow up in my youth in Africa and seeing what people have and don't have. And I think my biggest gift was this indigenous that one day they brought me over a little car that they did with steel, with their own hands. And they said, this is the only thing we can give you. You always give us your bicycle, your little toys. We cannot give you anything. The only thing that we can give you is this. We don't have anything. And to me was more than anything that anybody would give me at any price, because that was from their heart and it was not bought. And nowadays it's too easy to make $1, go out and spend it. And there's no more value to the dollar. And more important, there's no value of respect versus people, because you don't value anything anymore. And I think people should be more humble and value what it's given. Like for me today, it's a great opportunity because you guys invited me. You guys you believed in me. You just met me, but at the end of the day, you guys gave me a great opportunity. And to me, it's more valuable than anything else. And definitely, it's a great highlight.
Well, it's definitely mutual, man. I mean, being able to listen to your story and hear about your history and all the things, trials and tribulations you've gone through, and all the successes that you've had because of those barriers and things that you had to overcome in your life. I definitely know that I learned a lot today through this conversation. I learned a lot about you. Definitely makes me feel a lot closer, because I feel like, there's some things that you were talking on that I saw in myself as a kid, and saw myself as I was coming up through athletics and business. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people that are listening.
And I've got to say that, just hearing everything you were sharing, I felt like I was there. I felt like I was in your story. I felt like I was in those stands watching you doing those things or talking about those things. So it was really interesting to experience that with the way you were talking, because that energy, speaking of that energy, you could tell that the energy brought me to your world, and it made me see and picture what you were going through. So appreciate that a lot, and appreciate your time. And like Josh said, getting to know you and who you are, I can truly tell you're an amazing, genuine person, and so glad I could have met you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thanks.
Thank you so
Until
much.
next time, guys.